There's a monster locked away in our attic. This monster is my biological brother. My parents locked him up themselves, kept him confined for 24 long years. They told me he was sick in the head, prone to violent outbursts. That locking him away was the only way to keep others safe. But one day, I accidentally found my way into his room. He clamped a hand over my mouth, his eyes wide with terror, and whispered that the people downstairs, the ones who raised me, they weren't my real parents. By the age of 3, I already knew about the monster in the attic. Technically, he was my brother. But for as long as I could remember, I had never actually seen him. He was perpetually confined to that small, locked room upstairs. My parents always spoke of him with hushed voices and pained expressions, explaining that he was ill. He would lash out without warning, they said. He had intellectual disabilities, severe violent tendencies. To prevent him from harming others or himself, they had no choice but to keep him locked away. More than once, I caught glimpses of them wiping away secret tears when they thought I wasn't looking, their shoulders slumped with a burden I couldn't comprehend. Every mealtime, either Mom or Dad would carry a tray upstairs. I was never allowed near that small room, because I was terrified of him. My childhood soundscape was punctuated by the rhythmic, heavy scrape of chains dragging across floorboards overhead, interspersed with guttural, animalistic growls. Those sounds burrowed deep, becoming the stuff of nightmares. The word brother, for me, wasn't associated with kinship or play, it was synonymous with dread. I never spoke of him to anyone, not a single friend. He was the hidden shame, the dark secret lurking above our seemingly normal lives. One afternoon, I came home from school to an empty house. My parents had gone out, leaving a note saying dinner was in the fridge, just heated up. Mom called later, her voice tight with anxiety, reminding me sternly, repeatedly, not to go near the attic. As if I needed telling. Even without her warnings, the attic was forbidden territory, radiating a palpable sense of unease. I heated up leftovers, settling down in front of the TV, trying to lose myself in some mindless drama. Suddenly, the familiar, chilling sound echoed from above, the scrape of heavy chains. Brother. I frowned, determined to ignore it. But then came a different sound, a raw, agonized cry that clawed its way through the floorboards. It wasn't the usual growl, it was a sound of pure suffering, so intense it made my own stomach clench. Was he hurt? Unwell? Despite my deep-seated fear, a flicker of something else, pity, obligation, stirred within me. He was still my brother, my blood. Taking a deep breath, heart pounding against my ribs, I forced my feet towards the narrow staircase leading up to the attic. The attic itself was cramped, stiflingly dark, thick with the smell of dust and something else, something stale and unpleasant. A heavy, dark red wooden door dominated the small landing, secured with a formidable padlock. I knew where the key was hidden. Mom always tried to conceal it when I was around, but I'd seen her slip it inside a specific hollowed-out book on the highest shelf of the living room bookcase. Standing on tiptoe, I retrieved the heavy volume, my fingers closing around the cold metal key tucked within its pages. Another tormented roar ripped from behind the door as I inserted the key into the lock. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the sudden silence. With a heavy click, the lock sprang open. 18 years. For the first time in my life, I pushed open the door to my brother's prison. The stench hit me first, acrid and overwhelming, making me gag and cough. My eyes adjusted slowly to the dim light filtering through a single, grimy window high up on the wall. He was huddled in the far corner, shackled hand and foot with thick iron chains bolted to the floor and wall. His beard was long and matted, his hair an overgrown tangle that obscured most of his face. Filth clung to his ragged clothes. This was my brother, my closest blood relative. Seeing him like this, the fear I'd anticipated didn't materialize. Instead, an unexpected wave of profound sadness washed over me, stinging my eyes. Brother, I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. He gasped, his breathing ragged. His mouth opened, but only a hoarse, rasping sound emerged. I realized, with a jolt, he might not be able to speak. Or perhaps, after years of confinement, he had simply forgotten how. But his eyes, visible through the tangled hair, weren't wild or menacing. They held a desperate, pleading intelligence. He didn't look like he wanted to hurt me. Hesitantly, I took a step closer. The foul odor intensified, thick and cloying. I crouched down a few feet away from him. Brother, I tried again, keeping my voice soft. Is there something you want to tell me? He nodded slowly, emphatically. And then, impossibly, a single tear tracked a clean path through the grime on his hidden cheek. Scrambling back downstairs, I found a notepad and pen, returning quickly to the attic. I held them out to him. He tried to take the pen, but his hands, raw and blistered, couldn't maintain a grip. With a grunt of frustration, he motioned for me to hold the pad steady. Then, awkwardly, painstakingly, he clenched the pen between his teeth and began to scrawl shaky characters onto the paper. They are not our real parents. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at the crudely written sentence, my mind reeling. Not our parents? But before I could even begin to process the implication, before I could ask the flood of questions surging within me, I heard the distinct sound of the front door opening downstairs. Fear flared instantly in my brother's eyes. He frantically gestured towards the door, urging me to leave. Panicked, I grabbed the notepad and pen, stumbled out of the room, hastily relocked the heavy padlock, shoved the key back into its hiding place inside the book, and scrambled behind the tall bookcase just as heavy footsteps started ascending the attic stairs. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure they could hear it. Mercifully, they didn't seem to notice my presence. I watched through a gap in the shelves as Mom and Dad unlocked the red door, carrying the familiar dinner tray inside. The sound of my brother's anguished roars resumed, louder this time, mixed with their muffled voices. Seizing the opportunity, I crept silently down the stairs while they were still inside his room, darting into the downstairs bathroom, locking the door behind me. Flushing the toilet for effect, I waited a few moments, then emerged, trying to look casual, as if I'd just been using the facilities. Mom saw me immediately, her face breaking into a warm, familiar smile. Look what I brought you, sweetheart. Following her gaze, I saw a small, elegant box on the dining table. My favorite tiramisu cake. For 18 years, almost without fail, whenever they went out, they brought back my favorite cake. Their care for me, their attentiveness. It had always been unwavering, meticulous. How could they not be my parents? I remembered, vividly, being sick with a high fever once when I was little, nearly 39 degrees Celsius. Mom had stayed by my bedside for 3 days straight, barely sleeping, constantly bathing my forehead, murmuring reassurances. That kind of devotion, that fierce maternal love. It couldn't be faked, could it? Yet, my brother's words, his desperate eyes, echoed in my mind, planting seeds of doubt. Forcing a smile, pretending normalcy, I sat down and started eating the cake, deliberately keeping my tone light. Mom, do we have any photos of us from when I was really little? Like, the 3 of us together. Mom chuckled warmly. Of course, darling. Don't you remember? We took a family portrait every year. Just, such a pity your poor brother. Her eyes misted over, her expression clouding with familiar sadness. I mean before I was 3, I clarified gently. Mom looked surprised. Clara, why the sudden interest in those old photos? Oh, just, school project, I lied quickly, improvising. My teacher wants everyone to bring in photos from early childhood for a growing up presentation. Mom sighed, shaking her head ruefully. Sweetie, before you turned 3, that was when things were tightest for us financially. We barely had money for rent, let alone expensive things like cameras back then. My heart sank. 3. That was the age my own reliable memories began. I had clear images of them from that time onwards. But before 3? Nothing concrete. And conveniently, no photographic evidence to confirm or deny my brother's terrifying claim. Just then, Dad spoke, his voice heavy with a sigh. Clara, your brother's condition, it's worsening. Lately, he's been fabricating stories. Delusional fantasies about wanting to get out. We've been consulting specialists, trying desperately to find some treatment that might help him, Mom added, her eyes red-rimmed again. We don't want him to ever become a burden to you, sweetheart. My mind felt like a tangled mess. Compared to the terrifying, unknown figure chained in the attic, these 2 people, the ones who had raised me, loved me, cared for me my entire life, felt infinitely more real, more trustworthy. Their affection, their sacrifices. They couldn't be fake. Could they? Finishing the cake, I retreated to my room, trying to focus on my homework. Finals were approaching. Next year was crucial for university applications. But my brother's haunted eyes, the raw anguish in them, kept superimposing themselves over the equations on the page. A soft knock. Mom entered, carrying a glass of warm milk. "Clara, honey, I know you're studying hard, but don't forget to rest." She placed the milk on my desk. I wasn't thirsty. The rich cake still sat heavily in my stomach. But Mom just stood there, watching me, her gaze fixed on the glass with an unsettling intensity. "Drink it up while it's warm, dear. Then I can take the cup to wash." Her eagerness felt off. I suddenly recalled, hadn't she always done this? Stood over me, waiting, almost impatiently, until I drained the nightly glass of milk? "Mom, just leave it here," I said, trying to sound casual. "I'll drink it in a bit." She looked reluctant, but finally turned to leave, pausing at the door. "Be sure you drink it all, now." An insidious thought wormed its way into my mind. What if there's something wrong with the milk? I immediately dismissed it. Ridiculous. I'd been drinking this nightly milk for over a decade. If it were harmful, surely I'd know by now. I picked up the glass, raising it to my lips. Just as I was about to drink, a flicker of movement in the periphery caught my eye. The hallway reflection in my window. My bedroom door was cracked open, just a sliver. And peering through the gap was Mom's pale face, her expression blank, unreadable, watching me. "Mom, what are you doing?" I yelped, startled, nearly dropping the glass. Her face instantly rearranged itself into an embarrassed smile. "Oh, just worried you wouldn't drink your milk, dear. Need to keep your strength up for studying." Her explanation felt flimsy, forced. The unease intensified. Something was definitely wrong with the milk. "Mom, I'm grown up now. Stop fussing over me," I said, trying to sound exasperated rather than suspicious. All right, Mom knows." She lingered for another moment. "Just make sure you drink it, okay?" Finally, she left, pulling the door closed behind her. My heart hammered against my ribs. Waiting until I heard her footsteps descend the stairs, I quickly tiptoed to the bathroom and poured the entire glass of milk down the toilet, flushing it away twice for good measure. Late that night, long after the house had fallen silent, convinced my parents were asleep, I crept back up to the attic. Using the key, I unlocked the heavy padlock as quietly as possible. My brother looked up as I entered, his eyes widening with a mixture of surprise and desperate hope. On the floor beside him sat the dinner tray Mom had brought up earlier, untouched. My stomach churned as I saw the contents, a disgusting slop of leftover scraps, different dishes mixed together haphazardly, emitting a foul odor. Comparing this pig slop, to the delicious, carefully prepared meals I ate every day, a wave of nausea and fury washed over me. How could my loving parents treat their own son like this? Unless he wasn't their son. Unless everything he'd written was true. "Brother," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion, Is this what they feed you every day?" He remained silent, but his silence was answer enough. Looking at him closely now, I noticed how frighteningly thin he was, his arms, though adult-sized, seeming more frail than my own. I pushed the notepad and pen back towards him, needing answers, needing the truth, no matter how terrifying. If they aren't our parents, where are our real parents? His teeth clenched around the pen again. He slowly, laboriously scratched out another line. "They killed our parents. When you were only 2. My blood ran cold. Killed them? I was 8 then. I saw their faces. That's why they locked me up here. Lied, said I was sick, dangerous. Our grandfather, he set up a large trust fund for us years ago. At the bank. Money gets deposited automatically each month. They can't touch the principal. Only the interest. But if something happens to you, an accident, they can access the entire fund. Don't eat anything they give you. Don't drink anything. Especially the milk. It's poison. Slow acting, but poison nonetheless. Each crookedly formed character felt like a blow, landing heavy and sharp in my gut. He reached out then, his thin, scarred hand gripping my shoulder with surprising strength. His eyes, burning with a fierce, desperate light, met mine. You have to act first. Kill them. Avenge our parents. That was the last sentence he wrote. Just then, the distinct sound of the front door opening echoed from downstairs again. They were back early. I scrambled out of the room, relocking the door, heart pounding. My brother let out a choked, guttural cry behind me, as if trying to warn me about something else. Hiding behind the bookcase again, I saw Father come straight upstairs, bypassing My room entirely, heading directly for the bathroom. He must have noticed my light was off. His face in the dim hallway light looked unnervingly grim. He emerged from the bathroom quickly, then strode purposefully towards the attic stairs. He knows, I thought wildly. He knows I was here. I needed to get out, get away. But just as I started to creep towards the main staircase, a horrifying realization hit me. The notepad. The pen. In my panic, I'd left them inside the attic room. Cold sweat drenched my back. My mind screamed one thought. Run. But it was too late. Father appeared silently before me, his face an unreadable mask. Just then, a flash of lightning illuminated the hallway, momentarily bleaching his features, twisting his familiar, kind face into something monstrous, terrifying. Clara, what are you doing hiding back here? His voice was deceptively calm, but his grip on my arm, pulling me out from behind the bookcase, was like iron. I stared up at him, paralyzed by fear, unable to speak. Outside, the storm broke, rain hammering against the roof and windows, amplifying the sudden, terrifying silence inside the house. Clara? Why aren't you answering? He reached out, stroking my cheek, his touch now feeling icy, alien. My body trembled uncontrollably. You went into that room, didn't you, Clara? He asked, crouching down to my level, his voice low, intimate, yet filled with a chilling menace. There was no point denying it now. I nodded mutely, my throat tight with fear. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see my brother. His expression hardened. Clara Lee, he said sternly, his voice sharp, how many times have I told you? Your brother is dangerously violent. Why would you disobey me? Why would you put yourself at risk like that? Suddenly, anger surged through the fear, hot and fierce. Dangerous? How is he the dangerous one? I burst out, the words tumbling out uncontrollably. If I hadn't gone in there, I never would have known how you treat him. Feeding him scraps like an animal. Are you even my real parents? Is what he wrote true? The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Father stared at me, his face paling, a muscle twitching violently in his jaw. He took a deep, shuddering breath, then sighed heavily, the sound echoing in the tense silence. We hadn't intended to tell you this, not yet, he said finally, his voice weary, resigned. But you're an adult now. You deserve to know the truth. What followed was a story so shocking, so horrific, it left me reeling. Clara, he began, his voice thick with manufactured grief, the person locked in that room, he is not your biological brother. I stared at him blankly, unable to process. He sighed again, his face contorting with feigned anguish. Your real brother. He died when you were just 2 years old. He was 5 years older than you, a bright, lovely boy. His voice broke convincingly. We spent everything we had to send him to the best private school, give him every opportunity. We never imagined that decision would cost him his life. He paused, gathering himself. The person in that attic, his name is Adrian Ling. He was your brother's classmate. And he is the one who murdered him. Disbelief warred with horror. But he looks barely older than me. How could he have killed my brother all those years ago? Father's eyes filled with raw hatred, genuine this time. Adrian Ling was diagnosed with severe antisocial personality disorder. A psychopath, even as a child. His mother deliberately concealed his condition when enrolling him. One day, during recess, he attacked your brother, bludgeoned him with a rock, then just stood there, watched him bleed, watched him die. His breath came in ragged gasps, his hands gripping my shoulders, trembling violently. If he'd shown even a shred of humanity, even a flicker of remorse, if he'd just called for help instead of standing there watching, your brother might have lived. He would be 25 years old today. So you kidnapped him? Locked him up here? I whispered, horrified. Yes, we wanted revenge. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. Adrian was only 7. Too young for the law to truly punish him. So we delivered justice. A monster like that. If we'd let him grow up free, how many more lives would he have destroyed? I sank to the floor, overwhelmed, the room spinning around me. The truth, was it even more monstrous than my brother's claims? Clara, father, knelt beside me, his eyes pleading, what Adrian told you. I saw the notepad, it's all lies. Vicious lies. He's manipulating you. He's pure evil. Dad, I managed, my voice trembling, if this is true, You've kept him locked up for over a decade. He's paid his price, hasn't he? We have to turn him over to the police now. Are you crazy? He hissed, grabbing my arm again, his eyes wild. We can't involve the police. If this gets out, your mother and I will go to prison. Who would take care of you then, Clara? My chest felt tight, constricted. He was right, wasn't he? If we went to the police, Adrian Ling would become the victim, my parents the monsters. But was this story, this horrifying explanation, actually the truth? Clara, father pleaded, his voice softening again, filled with pathos after everything. Are you really going to believe the words of a stranger, a killer, over your own mother and father? I hesitated, torn. His story explained so much, yet lingering doubts remained. Mom's strange insistence about the milk. The timing of the supposed accident that necessitated their plastic surgery. But could my brother, trapped and isolated for years, truly concoct such an elaborate, convincing lie? Father reached out to stroke my hair, but I flinched away instinctively. Hurt flashed across his face. I know this is difficult to accept, sweetheart. But Adrian truly cannot be released. This is the price he pays for taking your brother from us. Just then, Mother appeared at the bottom of the attic stairs, looking up at me, her face etched with sorrow. Their combined grief, their apparent parental anguish, swayed me. Dad, Mom, I whispered, my voice thick with confusion and exhaustion. It's not that I don't believe you, it's just. This is all so much to take in. How could anyone accept that their loving parents were capable of such darkness? That the monster upstairs wasn't family, but a hated enemy? Go back to your room now, Clara. Get some sleep, Mother urged softly, her eyes pleading. You don't need to worry about any of this anymore. We lost your brother. All we want now is to see you grow up safe and happy. Her plea tipped the balance. Overwhelmed, exhausted, wanting desperately to believe them, I nodded numbly and retreated to my room. But sleep refused to come. Lying in the dark, listening to the rain lash against the window, my mind replayed my brother's or Adrian's desperate, haunted eyes. That look. The unwavering conviction. Could someone truly fake that? Could a psychopath possess such profound sadness? Suddenly, I sat bolt upright. I had to know the truth. For myself. If one side was lying, surely there must be some inconsistency, some small piece of physical evidence hidden somewhere in the house. Quietly, I slipped out of my room and crept towards my parents' bedroom door. Peeking inside, I saw them both sound asleep, exhausted from the night's drama. Tiptoeing over to the large antique wardrobe, I eased open the bottom drawer. I remembered, from childhood explorations, that they kept important documents hidden there. My fingers brushed against familiar plastic sleeves. Identification cards. I pulled them out, heart pounding. Relief washed over me. The faces on the IDs were theirs. The names matched. They were my parents. My brother. Adrian. He had lied. Just as I started to replace the cards, my fingers brushed against two thicker folders tucked beneath everything else. Curiosity piqued, I pulled them out. Private hospital letterhead. Plastic surgery consultation reports. Dated 1998. The year I turned 2. Both my parents. Extensive facial reconstruction surgery. My breath hitched. Why? Why would they both undergo major plastic surgery right after my brother supposedly died? Unless they needed new faces? Unless they weren't my parents at all, but needed to look like them? A terrifying possibility bloomed in the darkness of my mind, cold and sharp. Suddenly, a heavy hand landed on my shoulder. I spun around, gasping. They stood behind me, both awake now, their faces shadowed, unreadable, devoid of their usual warmth. Clara, Mother's voice was unnervingly calm, yet her eyes, fixed on the surgery reports in my hand, glittered with something cold. I thought I told you to go to sleep. You have early classes tomorrow. What are these? I held up the folders, my hand trembling violently. Everything. It all happened when I was 2. No family photos before then. Both of you undergoing major plastic surgery right after. What were you trying to hide? My voice rose, cracking with dawning horror and accusation. Father and Mother exchanged a long, silent look. Finally, Father reached back into the drawer, pulling out 2 more folders. Hospital admission records. Severe burn trauma. Also dated 1998. We never wanted you to know about this either, Clara, he began, his voice thick with manufactured pain. The year you turned 2. The same year your brother died. It broke us. The investigation into his death went nowhere. The school offered a pittance in compensation. We were consumed by grief, by rage. In our despair, Mother picked up the narrative, tears streaming convincingly down her altered face. We decided to end it all. We drove out to a deserted spot, poured gasoline over ourselves. But then, Father continued, his voice trembling, just as we were about to strike the match, we heard you crying. From the back seat of the car where we'd left you. That sound. Your tiny cry. It snapped us back. We threw ourselves into the nearby river, extinguishing the flames, barely surviving. Clara, forgive us, Mother sobbed, clutching my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. We were terrible parents then, so irresponsible. I looked down at her hand covering mine. Saw the familiar wrinkles, the faint age spots. Remembered all the years of meticulous care. The early mornings. She rose to make my breakfast before school. The countless times Father drove me, rain or shine, ensuring I was always safe, always comfortable. I bit my lip hard, tasting blood, tears blurring my vision. Father slowly pulled up his pant leg, revealing thick, ropey scar tissue covering his calf. Horrifying burn scars. No wonder he never wore shorts, not even in the sweltering heat of summer. He was hiding these remnants of their supposed shared trauma. Clara, he choked out, his voice thick with emotion, you're our precious treasure. The only thing that kept us going. We would never, ever harm you. I nodded numbly, overwhelmed, confused. My heart ached with sympathy for their apparent suffering, yet the timing, the coincidences. They gnawed at me. Thoroughly bewildered, I retreated back to my room, collapsing onto my bed, sleep now an utter impossibility. The next morning, Father drove me to school as usual. But I didn't go inside. Watching his car disappear down the street, I immediately hailed a taxi and directed it back home. I went straight to the attic, unlocked the red door, and stepped inside. Adrian Ling. I called out, my voice sharp, challenging. The man chained in the corner lifted his head slowly, his eyes clouded with confusion, the name clearly meaning nothing to him. You're Adrian Ling, I repeated, forcing coldness into my tone. The monster who killed my brother. A strange expression flickered across his face, surprise, then a dawning comprehension, followed by a smile so filled with bitterness. It was almost uglier than a grimace. He looked straight at me, then gestured weakly towards the notepad and pen I still held. Hesitantly, I approached, placing them within his reach. Again, the laborious process of writing with the pen clenched between his teeth. So, that's the story they spun for you? Clara, they lied. I am not Adrian Ling. My name is Liam Lee. I am your brother. The incident they described, it happened. Adrian Ling existed. But they twisted the truth, swapped the roles. Adrian was their son. I was the victim. Adrian attacked me with a rock that day. But I didn't die. We fought. I pushed him. He fell into the river. I didn't know he couldn't swim. By the time I ran for help, it was too late. I was 7 years old, Clara. It was self-defense. But Adrian's parents didn't see it that way. They wanted revenge. That rainy night, they broke into our house. They killed our real parents. They locked me in this attic. And then, to completely steal our parents' identities, our lives. They set themselves on fire. Endured the pain of burns, the surgeries, all to erase their past, to become them. The family photo. Mom and Dad took us for one when you were 2. They burned it, along with everything else that tied them to their old lives. Clara, I am your brother. Liam Lee. I swear it. Reading his account, so vastly different, yet terrifyingly plausible, left me reeling again, caught in a vortex of conflicting narratives. Who was telling the truth? Liam's eyes filled with tears again, leaving clean tracks on his grimy face. He looked at me with desperate, pleading eyes, choked sobs escaping his throat. Then, frantically, he started writing again. You're 18 now. They can access the full inheritance. They don't need you anymore. They're going to kill you, Clara. Tonight. I heard them planning it. Tonight, when they come home, they'll suggest a trip. To the river. You can't swim, right? You're terrified of water. His words triggered a fragmented memory. Dad, taking me to the river when I was very young. Playing near the edge. A sudden push? A careless stumble? Thrashing in the cold water, choking, panicking. Before being pulled out. He'd claimed it was an accident, his fault for not watching me closely enough. Could it have been deliberate? Had he intentionally traumatized me, instilled a lifelong aquaphobia all those years ago? All leading up to this? Manufacturing a scenario where my accidental drowning would seem tragically plausible? My fingernails dug into my palms, drawing blood. The potential truth was colder, sharper than any physical pain. My parents, no, these monsters, had been planning this for 16 years. But still, this was just Liam's word against theirs. He could be lying. He could be the psychopath they claimed, brilliantly manipulative, weaving a convincing tale from scraps of truth. He might only have the education of a 7-year-old, but his intellect, sharpened by years of desperate survival, could be formidable. Their real names, Liam scribbled hastily, are Jianchen and Menglanli. People react instinctively when they hear their own name called unexpectedly. One final test. I understood. I returned to school, forcing myself through the motions of the day, waiting numbly for the final bell. After school, waiting by the gate, I saw their car pull up. Mother was in the passenger seat today, unusual. Both their faces were wreathed in overly bright, anticipatory smiles. Sweetheart. Mother greeted me effusively as I got in, squeezing my hand tightly. So many stressful things happening lately. We thought, a fun family outing tonight. To cheer us all up. I forced a neutral expression, trying to control the trembling in my limbs. Where are we going? The Old Town River Walk. Father announced cheerfully from the driver's seat. You've always wanted to see it properly, haven't you? Mom and I finished work early today, perfect. Chance. He glanced back at me, smiling. You've been studying so hard, stressed about exams. A relaxing walk by the river will do you good. I even brought the drone you like flying. The river. Just as Liam predicted. My blood ran cold. He wasn't Adrian. He was my brother. My only remaining family. And these people beside me. They were the monsters. Wearing my parents' stolen faces, planning to finish what they started 16 years ago. Dad, I said slowly, deliberately, you know I'm terrified of water, right? His hands tightened momentarily on the steering wheel. Of course, I remember, sweetie. But I also remember how much you wanted to see the old town lit up at night. Don't worry, he added reassuringly, we'll be right there with you. We'll protect you. They hadn't noticed my shift in demeanor, too caught up in their own anticipation. Mother even started humming happily, scrolling through videos on her phone. Staring out the window at the passing city lights, I took a deep breath, then spoke, my voice quiet but clear, deliberately casual. Jianchen. Menglanli. Screech. The brake slammed on violently, throwing me forward against the seatbelt. In the sudden, jarring silence, both heads swiveled towards me simultaneously. Their faces, stripped bare of all pretense, were masks of cold, reptilian calculation. Their eyes, utterly devoid of warmth, felt alien, terrifyingly unfamiliar. In that instant, I knew. Everything Liam had written was true. Mother leaned towards me, her eyes wide, the white stark and startling in the dim car light. Clara, her voice was smooth as silk, dangerously soft. What did you just say, dear? I forced a laugh, trying to appear nonchalant, buying time. Oh! Just saw those names in a novel I was reading. Sounded interesting, so I said them out loud. Silence. They exchanged another long, unreadable look. Then, the car started moving again, gliding silently through the night. The atmosphere inside turned thick, suffocating. But now I knew. And I had to act first. Thankfully, I had come prepared. Tucked deep inside my school backpack was a sharp fruit knife. The Old Town River Walk, once a popular tourist spot, was eerily deserted by the time we arrived around 9 p.m. Only a few sanitation workers remained, finishing their shifts. Father and Mother spread a picnic blanket near the water's edge, unpacking containers of food and snacks with practiced ease. Clara, come sit. Mother called brightly, patting the spot beside her. Her smile was genuine now, anticipating the successful culmination of their long, patient plan. The acquisition of my grandfather's millions. I sat down beside her, the cold night air seeping into my bones. My heart felt just as cold, frozen with a terrible clarity. I had dreamt of visiting this place, yes. But never like this. Never accompanied by my parents' murderers, my brother's captors. The fruit knife felt heavy, solid in my pocket. My hand closed around the handle, the sharp edge biting into my palm. The pain was grounding, focusing my fear into a single point of sharp, cold resolve. Father stood gazing out at the dark, murmuring water. I remember how scared you were of water as a child, he mused aloud, his voice thick with false nostalgia. Never learned to swim. Hard to believe so. Many years have passed. He turned towards me, extending his hand, his smile benevolent, paternal. Come on. Let Dad hold your hand, walk you down to the edge. I promise I won't let go this time, Clara. I smiled back, taking his offered hand, my eyes devoid of any warmth. Mom, you come too, I urged, extending my other hand towards her. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, surprised, then took my hand, her touch cool, dry. Like a real family, the three of us walked towards the riverbank. Staring into the inky blackness of the water, the childhood memory surged again, the terrifying helplessness, the choking panic, the feeling of drowning. My heart hammered against my ribs. But stronger than the fear was the primal instinct to survive. To live. To save my brother. That fierce will solidified into icy determination as, just as Liam predicted, just as I knew they would, two pairs of hands suddenly shoved me hard from behind, towards the water's edge. But I was ready. Spinning around, anticipating the attack, I brought the knife up, plunging it deep into Father's abdomen. His eyes widened in shocked disbelief. Mother shrieked, launching herself at me, clawing. Biting, consumed by primal fury. But they were unarmed, unprepared for resistance. A second swift thrust, aimed at her chest, silenced her screams. She collapsed beside him, clutching the spreading stain on her blouse. I crouched down beside them, looking from one contorted face to the other, whispering their real names like a final curse. Jianchen. Menglanli. Jianchen managed a weak, gurgling laugh. So, you knew. He rasped, blood bubbling at his lips. But there's still one secret you don't know. His eyes rolled back before he could finish, unconsciousness claiming him. Menglanli already lay still in a widening pool of blood. Goodbye, I murmured coldly, looking down at their stolen faces. Then, methodically, ensuring the job was finished, I stood up, wiped the blade clean on the grass, and walked away. Half an hour later, I was back at the house. I unlocked the heavy chains binding my brother. He stumbled forward, grabbing me in a fierce, desperate hug. Freed from his silence, words poured out of him, stories of our real parents, fragments of a life stolen from us both. He wept, I wept. We have to go to the police, Liam, I said finally, my voice low, heavy. You just turned 18. It was self-defense. Years of confinement had weakened his legs. He leaned heavily on me as we walked. No, Clara, I corrected him sadly, the reality sinking in. It wasn't self-defense. Not entirely. It was excessive force. I'm going to prison. I had let rage consume me, taken justice into my own hands when I should have trusted the system. I regretted it now deeply. Liam, his understanding of the world still largely shaped by his 7-year-old self, didn't grasp the legal nuances. He just looked devastated. Finally, he pulled me close again, his voice choked with emotion. I'll wait for you, Clara. However long it takes. I'll protect the inheritance grandfather left us. Tomorrow, I realized, my mind suddenly clear, practical. Before the police find them, we need to go to the bank. Use your ID. Transfer everything out. We sat together through the night, talking. Liam told me about our real parents, both gentle, kind middle school teachers. How much they loved us. How they took us to the park every weekend. Listening, I finally felt a flicker of warmth, a connection to the life that should have been mine. I nestled against his thin shoulder, feeling, for the first time in years, truly safe. Sleep now, Clara, Liam murmured gently, stroking my hair. You're exhausted. I closed my eyes, letting the darkness claim me. Missing, in my exhaustion, the sudden shift in the eyes of the man holding me, the cool, calculating gaze that settled on my face in the pre-dawn gloom. 9 a.m. the next morning. At the bank, the transfer went smoothly. Grandfather's legacy was substantial. 5 million. No wonder the Chens had endured 16 years of deception, 16 years of caring for the daughter of the parents they murdered, 16 years of keeping their own son's killer locked away. For most people, 5 million was a lifetime's fortune, worth any price. Holding the new bank card, I turned to Liam outside the bank. Okay, I said, taking a deep breath. Let's go to the police station now. He nodded. We started walking. Our route took us past the river. The same river from last night. I stopped abruptly at the water's edge. Turning slowly, a strange, cold smile touched my lips. "Brother," I said softly, watching his reflection ripple on the dark water, "did you know? I was never actually afraid of water." I turned fully then, meeting his eyes. Saw his hand, frozen midair, caught in the aborted motion of shoving me forward. Saw the raw shock, the dawning terror in his expression as he realized his mistake. "Brother," I repeated, my voice dangerously sweet as I took a step towards him, "what were you just trying to do?" Liam's face crumpled. Fear contorted his features. He fumbled frantically for his phone, dialing emergency services with trembling fingers. "Police. Someone's been murdered." "Oh, I forgot to tell you," I interrupted cheerfully. "Jian Chen and Meng Lanli aren't dead. I didn't actually kill them, you know. Just incapacitated them." Liam stared, eyes wide with disbelief. They told you." "No," I corrected him, my smile widening. "They didn't tell me anything. Because, you see, I knew from the very beginning you weren't my brother." A final, small smile. "In fact, I never had a brother at all." The color drained completely from Liam's face, leaving it a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. The wail of approaching sirens grew louder in the distance. He sank to the ground, defeated, staring up at me numbly. When did you figure it out?" he whispered. From the age of 2, my parents knew I was different. While other toddlers were still babbling, I was forming complex sentences, starting to read. Doctors called me gifted, a prodigy. My maternal grandfather, despite his initial disapproval of my father, adored me. Before his death, he established a significant trust fund in my name, stipulating it could only be fully accessed upon my 18th birthday. My parents, both highly educated, held no traditional preference for sons. They cherished their only daughter, planning to pour all their resources, all their love, into me. I was their little princess. No siblings needed, none wanted. Then, one day when I was 2, intruders broke into our home. I recognized them instantly, the young couple who sold breakfast snacks outside my preschool. My mother, pitying their ragged clothes and their silent, vacant-eyed young son tied to their cart like an animal, had once given them 1,000 yuan, urging them to treat the boy better. I remembered their eyes then, greedy, envious, fixed on my mother's expensive handbag. They'd come begging for more money. My parents refused. Things escalated quickly. They tied my parents up, threatened to kill me if they didn't reveal their bank codes. My parents, terrified for my life, complied. But the intruders, driven by greed and perhaps fear of identification, decided to eliminate all witnesses anyway. In their final moments, desperate to save me, my parents must have revealed the existence of the trust fund, the condition of my survival until 18. And so I lived. They assumed a 2-year-old wouldn't remember, wouldn't understand. They concocted a story about my parents being away on a long business trip, about them being friends and trusted. With my care. Then, the calculated self-immolation, the plastic surgery, the complete erasure of their former selves. Their own son, Adrian Ling, died sometime after, perhaps. Killed by another child at school, as father claimed, or perhaps disposed of by his own monstrous parents when he became inconvenient. Enraged, grief-stricken, perhaps seeing a twisted opportunity, they abducted the 7-year-old boy accused of his death, Liam Lee, and locked him away, creating a new narrative, the dangerous, mentally ill older brother. They thought I knew nothing. But I remembered everything. The faces, the fear, the lies. The attic prisoner was never my brother. Menglan Li's nightly milk always contained a sedative, a slow poison perhaps meant to keep me docile, or maybe eventually stage an illness. But she never knew I only pretended to drink it, spitting it out secretly the moment she left my room each night. They fed me the story of the dangerous brother, needing to maintain the charade to eventually access the inheritance through me. Liam, trapped for years, was indeed intelligent. He sensed my growing awareness, saw an opportunity. He skillfully wove truths, the murder of our parents, the trust fund, into his fabricated narrative of switched identities, casting himself as the victim, the long-lost brother. A masterful manipulation. He needed me to free him, needed me to help him eliminate his captors, needed me to grant him access to my inheritance. He played his part perfectly, banking on his perceived genius, his victim status. But he underestimated me. He never considered I might be using him. I needed Liam. Needed his testimony, his story, to paint me as the innocent, unsuspecting victim, clarily. Needed him to corroborate the narrative of my gradual discovery of the truth. Needed him to confirm my fear when I finally snapped and attacked my abusers. I waited patiently, playing my part, letting them believe their plan was working, until the day they finally felt secure enough, desperate enough, to make their move against me. And today, finally, it all came together. I knelt before my parents' graves later that day, arranging the bouquet of white lilies I'd brought, smiling through the tears that streamed, finally, freely, down my face. Mom? Dad? I came to see you.